Before the Fellowship was the greatest story you've never heard. I'm Cameron.
I'm Dan.
I'm Greg.
Join us as we read and react to the Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien. Last time
we're back. We are back.
What do you mean, Dan? We've only been gone 1 week. Last time we began chapter 23. Tuor, son of Huor, was fostered by Grey Elves. Eventually he was moved by Ulmo to depart the land of his fathers. He traveled westward to the sea and discovered arms left by Turgon in Vinyamar. Ulmo appeared to him and urged him to seek the hidden kingdom of Gondolin. Tuor met an elf, Varanwe, who was the last survivor of the ships that Turgon sent into the west, and after hearing Tuor's story, Varanwe led him to the door of Gondolin. Tuor met Turgon and relayed the message from Ulmo that Turgon and his people must leave Gondolin and head to the sea. Turgon decided to remain in Gondolin, but he blocked the gates and would not allow anyone to come or go. Thorondor brought news of the fall of Nargothrond and the fall of Doriath, of Thingol and Dior. Tuor gained renown in Gondolin and married Idril, Turgon's daughter. Maeglin's hatred grew. Today we conclude chapter 23 of Quentis Silmarillion, beginning on page 241 of the second edition. In the spring of the year after was born in Gondolin Eärendil Half-Elven, the son of Tuor and Idril Celebrimbor. And that was 500 years and 3 since the coming of the Noldor to Middle-earth. Of surpassing beauty was Eärendil, for a light was in his face as the light of heaven. And he had the beauty and the wisdom of the Eldar, and the strength and hardihood of the men of old. And the sea spoke ever in his ear and heart, even as with Tuor his father. Then the days of Gondolin were yet full of joy and peace. And none knew that the region wherein the hidden kingdom lay had been at last revealed to Morgoth by the cries of Hurin, when standing in the wilderness beyond the Encircling Mountains, and finding no entrance, he called on Turgon in despair. Thereafter the thought of Morgoth was bent unceasing on the mountainous land between Anak and the upper waters of Sirion, whither his servants had never passed, yet still no spy or creature out of Angband could come there because of the vigilance of the eagles, and Morgoth was thwarted in the fulfillment of his designs. But Idril Celebrimbor was wise and far-seeing, and her heart misgave her, and foreboding crept upon her spirit as a cloud. Therefore in that time she let prepare a secret way, that should lead down from the city and passing out beneath the surface of the plain, issue far beyond the walls, northward of Aman Gwareth. And she contrived it that the work was known but to few, and no whisper of it came to Maeglin's ears. Now on a time when Eärendil was yet young, Maeglin was lost. For he, as has been told, loved mining and quarrying after metals above all other craft. And he was master and leader of the elves who worked in the mountains, distant from the city, seeking after metals for their smithying of things both of peace and war. But often Maeglin went with few of his folk, beyond the leaguer of the hills, and the king knew not that his bidding was defied. And thus it came to pass, as fate willed, that Maeglin was taken prisoner by orcs and brought to Angband. Maeglin was no weakling or craven, but the torment wherewith he was threatened cowed his spirit, and he purchased his life and freedom by revealing to Morgoth the very place of Gondolin, and the ways whereby it might be found and assailed. Great indeed was the joy of Morgoth, And to Maeglin he promised the lordship of Gondolin as his vassal, and the possession of Idril Celebrimbor when the city should be taken. And indeed, desire for Idril and hatred for Tuor led Maeglin the easier to his treachery, most infamous in all the histories of the elder days. But Morgoth sent him back to Gondolin, lest any should suspect the betrayal, and so that Maeglin should aid the assault from within, when the hour came. And he abode in the halls of the king with smiling face and evil in his heart, while the darkness gathered ever deeper upon Idril. At last, in the year when Eärendil was 7 years old, Morgoth was ready, and he loosed upon Gondolin his Balrogs and his Orcs, and his wolves. And with them came dragons of the brood of Glaurung, and they were become now many and terrible. The host of Morgoth came over the northern hills, where the height was greatest, and the watch least vigilant. And it came at night upon a time of festival, when all the people of Gondolin were upon the walls to await the rising sun, and sing their songs at its uplifting. For the morrow was the great feast that they named the Gates of Summer. But the red light mounted the hills in the north, and not in the east. And there was no stay in the advance of the foe until they were beneath the very walls of Gondolin, and the city was beleaguered without hope. Of the deeds of desperate valor there done, by the chieftains of the noble houses and their warriors, and not least by Tuor, much is told in the fall of Gondolin. Of the battle of Ecthelion of the fountain, with Gothmog, lord of Balrogs, in the very square of the king, where each slew the other. And of the defense of the tower of Turgon by the people of his household, until the tower was overthrown. And mighty was its fall, and the fall of Turgon and its ruin. Tuor sought to rescue Idril from the sack of the city, but Maeglin had laid hands on her and on Eärendil. And Tuor fought with Maeglin on the walls, and cast him far out, and his body as it fell smote the rocky slopes of Amangwareth thrice ere it pitched into the flames below. Then Tuor and Idril led such remnants of the people of Gondolin as they could gather in the confusion of the burning down the secret way which Idril had prepared. And of that passage the captains of Angband knew nothing, and thought that any fugitives would take a path towards the north and the highest parts of the mountains, and the nighest to Angband. The fume of the burning and the steam of the fair fountains of Gondolin, withering in the flame of the dragons of the north, fell upon the vale of Tomb Laden in mournful mists. And thus was the escape of Tuor and his company aided, for there was still a long and open road to follow from the tunnel's mouth to the foothills of the mountains. Nonetheless they came thither, and beyond hope they climbed in woe and misery, for the high places were cold and terrible, and they had many among them that were wounded, and women and children. There was a dreadful pass, Cirith Tharanath it was named, the Eagle's Cleft, where beneath the shadow of the highest peaks a narrow path wound its way. On the right hand it was walled by a precipice, and on the left a dreadful fall leapt into emptiness. Along that narrow way their march was strung, when they were ambushed by orcs. For Morgoth had set watchers all about the encircling hills, and a Balrog was with them. Then dreadful was their plight, and hardly would they have been saved by the valor of yellow-haired Glorfindel, chief of the house of the Golden Flower of Gondolin, had not Thorondor come timely to their aid. Many are the songs that have been sung in the duel of Glorfindel and the Balrog upon a pinnacle of rock in that high place, and both fell to ruin in the abyss. But the eagles coming stooped upon the orcs and drove them shrieking back, and all were slain or cast into the deeps, so that rumor of the escape from Gondolin came not until long after to Morgoth's ears. Then Thorondor bore up Glorfindel's body out of the abyss, and they buried him in a mound of stones beside the pass, and a green turf came there, and yellow flowers bloomed upon it amid the barrenness of stone, until the world was changed. Thus led by Tuor, son of Huor, the remnant of Gondolin, passed over the mountains, and came down into the vale of Sirion, and fleeing southward by weary and dangerous marches, they came at length to Nan Tathrin, the land of willows, for the power of Ulmo yet ran in the great river, and it was about them. There they rested a while, and were healed of their hurts and weariness, but their sorrow could not be healed. And they made a feast in memory of Gondolin, and of the elves that had perished there, the maidens and the wives, and the warriors of the king. And for Glorfindel the beloved, many were the songs they sang, under the willows in Nan Tathrin in the waning of the year. There Tuor made a song for Erendil his son, concerning the coming of Ulmo the Lord of Waters, to the shores of Nevrast aforetime. And the sea longing woke in his heart, and in his sons also. Therefore Idril and Tuor departed from Nantathren, and went southwards down the river to the sea. And they dwelt there by the mouths of Sirion, and joined their people to the company of Elwing, Dior's daughter, that had fled thither but a little while before. And when the tidings came to Balar of the fall of Gondolin and the death of Turgon, Erenion, Gil-galad, son of Fingon, was named High King of the Noldor and Middle-earth. But Morgoth thought that his triumph was fulfilled, recking little of the sons of Fëanor, and of their oath, which had harmed him never, and turned always to the mightiest aid. And in his black thought he laughed, regretting not the one Silmaril that he had lost, for by it, as he deemed, the last shred of the people of the Eldar should vanish from Middle-earth and trouble it no more. If he knew of the dwelling by the waters of Sirion, he gave no sign, biding his time, and waiting upon the working of oath and lie. Yet by Sirion and the sea there grew up an elven folk, the gleanings of Doriath and Gondolin, and from Balar the mariners of Círdan came among them, and they took to the waves and the building of ships, dwelling ever nigh to the coast of Arvirnian, under the shadow of Ulmo's hand. And it is said that in that time Ulmo came to Valinor out of the deep waters, and spoke there to the Valar of the need of the elves. And he called on them to forgive them, and rescue them from the overmastering might of Morgoth, and win back the Silmarils, wherein alone now bloomed the light of the days of bliss, when the two trees still shone in Valinor. But Manwë moved not, and of the counsels of his heart what tale shall tell? The wise have said that the hour was not yet come, and that only one speaking in person for the cause of both elves and men, pleading for pardon on their misdeeds and pity on their woes, might move the councils of the powers. And the oath of Fëanor perhaps even Manwë could not loose, until it found its end, and the sons of Fëanor relinquished the Silmarils, upon which they had laid their ruthless claim. For the light which lit the Silmarils, the Valar themselves had made. In those days Tuor felt old age creep upon him, and ever a longing for the deeps of the sea grew stronger in his heart. Therefore he built a great ship, and he named it Earame, which is sea wing. And with Idril Celebrimbor he set sail into the sunset and the west, and came no more into any tale or song. But in after days it was sung that Tuor alone of mortal men was numbered among the elder race, and was joined with the Noldor, whom he loved, and his fate is sundered from the fate of men. So in summary, Arundel is born to Tuor and Idril. Having destroyed the other great elf kingdoms, Morgoth sets his will on Gondolin. Maeglin wanders beyond the Encircling Mountains and is captured by orcs and taken to Angband. He reveals the location of Gondolin to Morgoth and is sent back. On the day of a great feast, Morgoth attacks with his Balrogs and Orcs and dragons and wolves because of the aid of Maeglin. Ecthelion duels Gothmog and both die in combat. Turgon's people valiantly defend the Tower of Turgon, but it's overthrown and Turgon is killed. Tuor seeks Idril and casts Maeglin from the walls to his death. Idril leads a remnant of the people through a hidden pass to escape, but they are ambushed by orcs. Glorfindel battles a Balrog, and they both fall into the abyss. Thorondor rescues the remnant from the attacking orcs. Eventually, they are joined to the company of Elwing, Dior's daughter. Ereinion, Gilgalad, son of Fingod, son of Fingolfin, is named High King of the Noldor. Ulmo goes to Valinor seeking for Manwë and the Valar to assist the elves, but he is unmoved. As Tuor and Idril age, they sail into the west. It is said that Tuor was numbered among the elves and was sundered from the fate of men. Cool. I wanna work backwards. There's something at the end that really stuck out to me. It's on the bottom of page 244, and it's talking about like Manwë not being moved by Ulmo's plight. Which again, Ulmo's my favorite. I just love how he's not just the deep water bro, but he cares for the people of Middle Earth. He's always involved, you know. He's helped at several points in the story. But Manwë is not moved by his plight. And I found it interesting that said, so the wise have said, maybe it's because the hour was not yet come, and only one speaking in person for the both cause of elves and men might move the council of the powers. It's a very Christological idea because, and I don't know if it struck you in the same way. I could be overreaching, but the idea that it's a Valar pleading for elves and men, and Christologically, we're not saved unless Christ is also a man. You know, if Christ is not God, he can't save us because he can't save. If he's not man, he can't save us because he's not a man. And so it's interesting that this note about maybe if there was someone who speaking in person for the cause of both elves and men, then the cause might be heard. I thought that was interesting.
That's a really good point. I honestly just thought it's because his name was Manwë and not Womanwë that he didn't listen.
Maybe so.
Man always gets his way. That's what his name means.
We just started again, and he's like, "I'm done." He just quits.
See you guys in 6 months.
It's super interesting. I definitely that part stood out to me. That whole part about why Manwë wasn't moved, and it made me think of the very next line from what you just read. It would be one speaking in person, pleading for pardon on their misdeeds and pity on their woes. And I was thinking a little bit about that because the elves are much more culpable for all the evil in Middle Earth at this time. They like Fëanor in particular, and the sons of Fëanor are kind of the source of a lot of the problems. And men are weak and small and don't live long and susceptible to all of Morgoth's twistings and lies and everything, And so it does seem like there's. I was wondering if, in particular, the wording is saying pleading for the pardon of the elves' misdeeds and pity for the men's woes. That's kind of more their condition, is just continual woes. I mean, there are bad men that did bad things, but and more so, they just have been. They kind of stumbled upon this like timeless conflict between Morgoth and elves, and were swept into that.
Greg, I don't know if your mic is connected. Actually,
Oh no.
I hear you, but sounds
Well,
like
the beginning of our reading starts with, I mean, would Arundel have been a good candidate for that pleading?
Maybe
Arundel
he
being
would be.
half elf. Well, he's half elven,
Interesting.
so he's man and elf, and has wisdom and beauty and strength.
I think it's Arundel. I think it's all those syllables.
What? Aaron?
Arundel.
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 I think you're right. Yeah, that would be consistent with. Yeah.
Arundel. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I suppose, but it can't just be an elf man. It has to be something a little extra, right? Like, I guess someone who could make it to the west. Maybe that's the other caveat, is because you can't just sail to the
That's
west
right.
and be good to go. Like, you have to be kind of born through the sea.
There's no access to the west, right? There's currently no access to the west for elves or men, and they've tried.
Sure. Interesting. Maybe if Ulmo brought someone with him. Maybe Ulmo could find passage. If anyone can
bring
do
an
it.
island.
Yeah,
we need another floating island.
Hmm.
Speaking of pronunciations, I think actually, Cameron, it's pronounced Gregfindel.
Oh shoot!
Why
is my name
Glorfindel?
not a pun right now? Hold on, I need to change that for our YouTube audience.
Have you ever had your name as Maeglin?
No.
Oh, okay.
More fitting. I'm kind of a brooding dark.
Yeah, but you're not treacherous. So.
Not yet. I'm still brooding. This makes me want to read The Fall of Gondolin, because it sounds like the whole entirety of The Fall of Gondolin is summarized in 2 sentences at the bottom of 242. The battle of Ecthelion against Gothmog, the Lord of Balrogs, where they slay each other. I want like a full chapter of that. Just that battle.
Is that in the Unfinished Tales? Does it?
It's its own. It's its own book.
Wow.
Wow.
I love it. Man, Tolkien knows how to write epic scale battles, or battles with a lot of like poetry and emotional stakes. I just love how he writes. It gives you like a 20,000-foot view that feels very important. Usually when you give like a 20,000-foot view, it's very like, and then this nation and that nation, and then 10 years later, one wins.
Right.
Very technical, but this is like emotional somehow. I don't know how he does it. So good.
Yeah. I think that's part of there's a depth to it where to the place and the culture and the history, where he talks about songs being written of Glorfindel and the place of his burial being fertile, and until the world was changed, it says, and so it's like this place of Glorfindel's burial is gone now, but we still speak of it because it was such a heroic act, and all these ages later, it's still one of our important stories as a people. So I think that's part of where the weight comes from, where he's laying out this like lived history, this heritage that we're kind of seeing from much further along in the future.
Like, I think a very like mediocre author would just be like, and the dragons came and burnt the whole city, and it was just a misty, ash heap. It's like, okay, cool, bro. But then Tolkien comes along and he like weaves it all together. His descriptions are all narratively focused, like they move the plot forward. So, for example, this is how he puts it: the fume of the burning and the steam of the fair fountains of Gondolin, withering in the flame of the dragons of the north, fell upon the vale of Tomb Laden in mournful mists, and thus was the escape of Tuor and his company aided. Like, just like, whoa, he just communicated so much in like one sentence, with a bunch of commas.
Yeah. So we talked about Glaurung several episodes ago, that he's not full dragon, right? Or she. I don't know if it's
like
she.
it's a wingless dragon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess she question mark. Because there's the dragons of the brood of Glaurung that are in this fight, which I thought was interesting. Many of them and terrible. So do we think they are dragons in the ilk of Smaug or wormy, slithering dragons?
That's a good question. It mentions the dragons being many. Does it say they flew?
No. It just says, and with them came dragons of the brood of Glaurung, and they were become now many and terrible.
They came over the mountains, though, right?
Yeah.
Did they slither?
They just jump high. They jump really high.
Where are you at? What page?
Oh, it's just a little bit up from where we were just reading on 242. So it's at the beginning of that paragraph. At last, in the year when Eärendil was 7 years old.
Right in the middle.
Yeah.
It's interesting because, like, previously, it's like he had one dragon that would come.
Yeah.
Like Glaurung. And then the other one.
And there's more kind of Balrogs that we've encountered in the Silmarillion than we encounter in, the Lord of the Rings. But I feel like in this chapter, there's a ton of them. Like, there's just one like marching in the open with the orcs. And then insane. A bunch just like sent to battle.
Like, can you imagine a Balrog in any of the battles of Lord of the Rings? Like Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings. Like, just put a Balrog there in the middle of the battle. It would have been insane.
Just put a Balrog on it. That was my Portlandia.
Maybe George Lucas will put Balrogs into Lord of the Rings later, like in a special DVD release.
Yeah. Like he'll do the George Lucas. Give the George Lucas treatment for the Lord of the Rings, and that would be great. I love that. I love that word "loosed." He loosed upon Gondolin, Balrogs, and orcs, and it has this sense of like blitzkrieg,
like
just like there's just hordes of these.
They're waiting to do it. Yeah. Like it's what they do, but they. It's pretty cool.
So evocative. Yeah.
Actually, the Star Wars connection there was not the first time I thought about Star Wars in this chapter. As soon as like, I mean, when Glorfindel dies, Glorfindel, is that his name?
Mm-hmm.
No, was it Glorfindel or was it someone else with a similar
There's
name.
multiple. I mean, everyone dies in this one. Almost everyone dies.
Who fell into the precipice in
Maeglin.
this one
Maeglin.
with a
No,
Balrog?
Glorfindel.
Oh,
Thank
that's
you.
Glorfindel, yeah.
Yeah. It made me think of, like, did Rogue One get its inspiration from Silmarillion, where, like, this is like the backstory to the whole world, but none of the characters, or not many of the characters, show up in The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings, so they all have to die or come to some end. But it's
Maybe
masterfully
it's
done.
Yeah. It's just the reality of writing a prequel, where you want compelling characters, but they can't stick around.
They've got two choices. They either die or they go to the west. So
they go to the west, exactly. There is the Outer Rim in Star Wars. That's a thing they could use. Just fly to the Outer Rim.
Yeah.
Oh, there's even another dimension in Star Wars where
What, really?
That's where
is that where Captain
Thrawn...
America and Thor went back in time to get the
I guess it's not another dimension, but it's really far away. Thrawn and Ezra get like trapped there. And now
all right, nerds, can we get back to what we're here to talk about?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's embarrassing. Everyone's gonna think we're nerds after bringing up Star Wars.
Whereas before they thought we were just really, really, really like cool guys.
Where is the liker of Lord of the Rings? Is he a geek, a nerd, or a dweeb?
He can be all of those things if he wants.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah,
Good. All right, that's all I wanted to know. Thanks.
Yeah. I think we also heard it talks about Ulmo. Tours with Arendelle, and the sea longing woke in their hearts. So Ulmo must have pulled out his little penny whistle and played "My Heart Will Go On" for them, and they just their
all you
hearts
need is
just
those first
started
four
yearning.
notes.
Do you guys have sea longing in your awoken in your heart?
Sometimes. It's a specific sea. It's a very specific sea that I have longing for.
It's just the Thames River.
No, that's not a sea. That's a river.
River Thames, as they say.
It's in between Wales and Ireland. There's a place called Barnsley Sound. And it has 11 currents that cross at the same time, and it is awesome to watch it. It's terrifying. But you get this sense of grandeur when you're looking at it, because from a distance you only get peace, but when you get up close, you get nothing but terror. If you're near those rocks, it's a very scary thing. You think about, what if I slipped in and you're just repeatedly being smashed against rocks. But then you walk away, you walk back up the hill, you hear it in the distance, you turn around and you take a deep breath of just peace. That's sea longing for me, that, where those two things intersect, the terror and the peace.
Yeah.
Do you get sea longing?
Do you have sea longing?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think so.
No.
But I know Peter Kraft has written he says everyone has that sea longing. So I believe that everyone does, including myself.
But
I have a hypothesis about sea longing. Yeah.
Okay.
Horses don't belong in the sea.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. I'm scared of the sea.
I do think
sea
I might have said this
respect. I have sea respect. And I felt the terror of the sea, just how deep it is and unknown. But longing, like Moana has when she sees the horizon, she just wants to sail, even though her dad doesn't want her to. I don't get that.
How about you, Greg?
Yeah, I definitely do. I mean, I envision the Pacific, right? And there's something. I mean, it doesn't even have to be that big a body of the water. Like any water where you can't see the other shore. There's something about that just it seems immense, and kind of what you're talking about. I think similarly, Dan, where it's there's something. I think maybe what it is. This is my hypothesis that it's kind of that it resonates with that desire for the infinite that is within every human heart. It's you just like we see large things, right? You see mountains and things, and they can move us in a certain way because of how immense they are. But the sea just seems to stretch forever. And on the West Coast, when the sun sets beyond the horizon over the sea, it's like it just never ends. It seems like, I think that's what it is.
That's cool.
I love that.
I do wonder if that's why it's interesting that like there's these ideas of East and West, right? Like in Christianity, the sun rises in the East. That's like the realm of light, and right, and it sets in the West, and that's where darkness is. But the kind of holy place in Arda is the West, and it's I guess maybe in some ways too. It's like that's where the light originally dwelt. It's even though now the sun does go from east to west, the origin of the light is from the far west.
Does it go from east to west? It
does, but it didn't originally. Remember the Maiar got all tangled up in the sky, and they would go back and forth across.
Yeah,
but then now they go under the ocean. And
do we know it's east to west though?
Yeah, and it mentions that in here too.
Oh, okay.
In this reading, it mentioned how at their feast they were looking. Everyone was up on, and Gondolin was up on the walls, looking to the east to see the sunrise. But then they saw a red glow in the north from Morgoth's armies coming, which would be terrifying.
Interesting.
You're expecting to see the Alpen glow.
And you turn and you look to the north, and all you hear is dun 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 dun.
Dun 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 dun.
Yeah. Oh, Greg, before we go today, I have to tell you a story of our hiatus. Cameron and I were
what hiatus?
Where were we? We were in Denver. On a work trip.
Oh yes,
I was in Denver recently.
What were you doing in Denver? On a work trip too?
I had a layover from Salt Lake City, but I slept on the floor in Denver International Airport. That's fine.
We were in an Airbnb, but when we weren't in an Airbnb, we were having scotch and cigars at a cigar bar with some fans of Mass of the Ages, and we sat around a table, and as we're talking, there's a guy with us who looks like Andy Serkis, and I point it out. I'm like, do you ever get Andy? You must get it all the time, so I'm really sorry, but do you get Andy Serkis? And he's like, who's that? I'm like, okay. It's this guy here, and he's like, you say I look like Gollum. I'm like, no, I think you look like the actor, okay? But Gollum looks like the actor. I'm like, well, you don't look like Gollum, okay? And then so we're talking about Lord of the Rings. Silmarillion comes up, and people are sharing their thoughts about. I tried reading it, and the Andy Serkis guy is like, I just can't ever get into it. And then another guy at the table who's a fan of Mass of the Ages is like, oh, isn't that hard? I mean, like, Andy Serkis has done a really good audiobook of Silmarillion. Yeah. But there's this really great podcast that you guys should listen to called Before the Fellowship. They're not doing it anymore, like, for a while, and I don't know why. And I laugh out loud. I'm like, and he looks at me like, Are you do you know Before the Fellowship? I'm like, yeah, I know it. And it's like, wait, are you in it? I'm like, yes, I'm in it. And so is Cameron.
Yeah.
He's like, no.
We're like half of the
Cameron's-
table.
Cameron's in the restroom at this point. So he didn't get to encounter the hilarious conversation until they came back and we filled him in on just, it was pretty funny. So I was able
Please
to
tell me at
update
some
him.
point. Please tell me he was like, and you're the third guy to some random person.
Yeah. I think he was looking around for Greg. But then I basically shared with him. His name's Nate. I shared with him that I'd give him a shout out. And
Shout out, Nate.
Podcast. Yeah.
Thanks for the
he was
cigars.
good. He gave us he bought us a really nice cigar. Like probably best cigar I've ever had, actually. Yeah, thank you. And
okay, I have a very brief story. Not to cut off the Nate story, but speaking
It better
of cigars,
be half as long, but twice as good.
I hate being in Las Vegas. Las Vegas is the worst place. Apologies to anyone who lives there, especially if it's not by choice. But it just is. I feel like it's just the worst place. I don't like being there. And I was going to Arches National Park with some friends. My flight got canceled to Salt Lake City, so I ended up flying to Las Vegas and then taking a shuttle to Salt Lake. And when I was in Las Vegas, I was like, I'm going to buy some cigars here. And the little shop there, the like duty free shop or whatever, the woman that was like working it, she looked like she was 12. And so it was kind of I don't think she actually was, but she looked very young. But it just felt fitting that I was like buying, like she was like, oh, do you want some help? And I was like, you shouldn't know anything about this. You're 12 years old. Why would you be an expert in cigars? And she had all this information. She knew a lot, apparently. But it just felt fitting for Las Vegas. Like, okay, that's what we're doing here.
that you buy cigars from a 12-year-old.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, that's all. All right, we got our.
Anyway, shout out to Nate, who's not 12 years old and was a really, really gracious host of ours. And shout out to that 12-year-old who is 12.
Yeah.
Who's actually 12. If you like what you hear, go ahead and rate us 3 fallen hidden cities out of 3. Follow us everywhere at Before the Fellowship. Join the discussion on Discord and send any comments or questions to beforethefellowship@gmail.com. I'll mention that our Discord channel is in the link. Join us in the description, I should say. Join us next week as we read the greatest story you've never heard, The Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien. Point.
All right, we're gonna do some blind email reads.
Why haven't you returned my calls?
I haven't opened the email in quite a while. So this one's from February 13th from Tracy. It says, "Where did you guys go?" We can't even read this. Tracy,
thank you for this, Cameron, and put this at the beginning of the
Tracy,
first one
thank you for this nice message. I love your show, but I haven't been able to get anything after episode 62. What happened? Are you guys okay? You are so missed. I hope you all are okay.
Oh,
Regards,
Tracy, thank you.
Could you imagine? That is a very nice message. Thank you, Tracy. Could you imagine, though, that something did happen to all 3 of us separately, where we were incapacitated or dead or something? That would really be something.
It would.
Like, if something happened to one of us, the other 2 would show up and say, "We're really sorry to say this, but Dan died."
Ooh.
Dan sailed west, pleading our cause to...
Greg went to sacrifice people.
Yeah.
Cameron became Mongolian.
Okay, there's 2 more. There's 2 more we got to get through. There's 2 more. Here's the next one from William. He says, "Is the Arkenstone a Silmaril?" at the end, one falls into the ocean, one falls into the earth, and one is flying on a ship in the heavens. I'm going to be honest. I don't even know what the Arkenstone is. Is that?
It was in the Hobbit.
Arkenstone is the dwarves' like
Yeah,
most
their
prized treasure.
jewel.
But no, but wait, is he saying that the same things that happen to the Silmarils happen to the Arken?
I think.
Happen
Okay, in
to
that case, I think what he's saying,
Arkenstones
one of the
a
Silmarils,
Arkenstone. Yeah.
one of the Silmarils falls into the earth, and the
Ooh, okay.
Arkenstone was discovered beneath the roots of the Lonely Mountain, is what I'm reading on Tolkien
Yes.
Gateway.
Yep.
I say 100% yes.
100% yes.
Wait, 100% yes. What? It's
is.
a Silmaril?
It is a Silmaril.
No, that would be amazing.
Speaking of the Silmarils, I was watching Lord of the Rings, and you know when Frodo has that file of Galadriel?
Yeah.
Did I mention this already?
No.
It's the Light of Elendil.
Yeah.
Erendil.
Well, Elendil,
What?
which I think is the same as the Light of Arendil.
You're talking about the one who's flying around in the sky.
Yeah. The one who flies around the sky, his name's Arendil. But in the film, they say the Light of Elendil.
Go ahead.
And
Yeah.
that's from the Silmaril. So it's cool. It's like in
Oh, I see what you're
the
saying
film.
now. I
That
see what
light
you're
is from
saying.
a Silmaril, and it's
Yeah.
in Lord of the Rings.
That's great. I'm with you now. One more email?
Yeah. Go ahead. What two
This
more?
is from...
If we only have three, why would we leave some?
Dan, send him an email.
This is from Colibri. It says, "Hey guys, as a longtime Tolkien fan over 40 years, I love your podcast. I've totally been on the edge of my seat for the next episode. I notice it's been a while now."
Oh, man. Can you imagine him sitting on the edge of his seat for 9 months?
I think it's a girl.
This is from
sorry.
April 19th. So
That's pretty
been a couple
recent.
months. Been a couple months.
Is that the end of the email?
I notice it's been a while now, so I wanted to let you know you have fans who are hoping you pick it back up again. If you need to hear that encouragement, hoping that
that's so
something bad
nice.
hasn't happened to anyone, and that's why it's on hold. All the best, Colibri. These are so sweet.
You are so sweet. Thank you.
We really don't
let's-
deserve this kind of.
Let's
these
have
kind of
a.
messages.
We've let you down, and we are genuinely sorry for that. But we hope that we have. By the time you're listening to this, how many have we recorded?
10?
8,
Eight to
9,
10.
10. So we are going to finish it, and then we probably will be doing the One Ring game too, if we can find a
Oh my gosh, give me a break, literally.
DM.
Yeah, I got to talk to Andy about that. He was a fan favorite. People liked Andy.
Yeah, he's great.
Andy's great, but he was like, if we do the One Ring, then can I use the rules from Star Wars?
And
I
he
was
said
like,
no.
I said, well, I didn't say no, but
And to the no.
I think
no,
it's
no.
a no because it's its own proprietary system that is pretty awesome.